So, hello everyone again. So, this is the third part of lecture 6 of electromagnetic induction. So, I am Sameer Lavankar. So, let us move on. So, right now we are talking about the last chapter, lesson 8, that is AC generators of electromagnetic induction. We have already talked about all these concepts involved here. Let us move on to AC generators discussions. So, in the last lecture we talked about the principle involved in AC generators. We talked about what is the value, what are the slip rings, what are these brushes, what is the coil, how it is evolved, what is this axle, what is the direction of the magnetic field involved, what are slip rings, what are carbon brushes, what is alternating EMF. So, everything written in this figure here is been told to you very in brief or in detail as much as it is important for your information. Also, this simple brief use of what are slip rings and carbon brushes has been talked to you. Till last lecture we talked about these 4 points. Let us move on to the last concluding point of this slide. So, please look carefully here. So, when the coil is rotated with a constant angular speed omega, please make sure that here the value of magnetic field B is also uniform and the value or the rotational velocity or the rotation with which the area is being moved is also with a constant velocity. It is not varying with time. The value of omega, let us say at t is equal to 0 is also 5 radians per second, at value of t is equal to let us say 10 seconds is also 5 radians per second. That means it is also constant. So, B is also uniform. So, B is also uniform and the value with which area is rotated so that it becomes A dash involves a omega, this value is also constant. Everything is idealized properly while calculating the concepts involved in AC generators. So, now when the coil is rotated with a constant angular velocity omega, the angle theta between the magnetic field vector B and the area vector A of the coil at any instant t is nothing but theta is equal to omega t. So, this is a simple concept involved. Let us say this is the circle in which the coil is moving, or so let us say it is moving at t is equal to, it was here, at t is equal to some t it was here. If this is the theta involved and this is the time taken, then this theta is nothing but omega multiplied by t. So, when the coil is rotated with a constant angular speed omega, the angle theta between the magnetic field vector B and the area vector A of the coil at any instant t is theta is equal to omega t. Assuming theta is equal to 0 degree at t is equal to 0, we are assuming that theta is 0 at t is equal to 0. This is a very important assumption. Moving on, as a result, the effective area of the coil exposed to the magnetic field lines change with time. A basic principle of Faraday's law of induction is being used here. As a result, the effective area of the coil exposed to the magnetic field lines changes with time and the flux at any time t is, same formula. Simple basic formulas are being used, only a little bit complexity is added line by line. So, phi b is nothing but dot vector product of B and A, that is B A cos theta, but here what is the value of theta? Theta is nothing but a function of t and hence this value is used here. Everything is same, every basic concept of electromagnetic induction is being applied in AC generators. So, phi b is nothing but B dot A, which is equal to B A cos omega t. So, moving on from Faraday, the last point which we got was phi b is equal to B A cos omega t. So, from Faraday's law, what was Faraday's law? Faraday's law was this. So, from Faraday's law, the induced EMF for the rotating coil of n turns is then epsilon is equal to minus n d phi by dt, the same formula here, which is equal to just putting this value here, simple mathematical substitution. Let me iterate to you how this equation came. So, As b and a are constant, it can be put out of differentiation. Hence, we get the same formula involved here, that is minus epsilon is equal to minus capital N into capital B into capital A into d by dt of cos omega t. Now, this is already being known that d by dt of cos theta is equal to minus negative of sin theta, and hence this concept is being used here. Therefore, the instantaneous, please make sure of this term here. Please make sure of this term here, it is written as the instantaneous value of EMF. The instantaneous value of EMF is epsilon is equal to NBA omega. It is nothing but the differentiation rules are being used. So, because omega t was written, therefore, an omega is also multiplied while calculating the value of differentiation. So, it is nothing but d by dt of cos omega t is equal to minus sin omega t into omega. Simple differentiation form, this simple differentiation principles. So, epsilon, so we got the value of epsilon as NBA omega sin omega t. Please make sure that in our terms, in our complete formulation, n is a constant, b is a constant, a is a constant, omega is a constant. Only time will vary here, only and only time will vary. So, where NBA omega is the maximum value of the EMF. Why it is called as maximum value? Because let us say we already know that sin theta, let me make the graph of sin theta. So, let us say this is 0, this is 2 pi, this is pi. So, the maximum value which sin theta attains is plus 1 and the minimum value which sin theta attains is minus 1. So, maximum value, let me put any theta here, the value this can attain is plus 1 only. Therefore, epsilon is equal to NBA omega. So, because NBA omega is the maximum value, hence it is written here that where NBA omega is the maximum value of the EMF. Moving on, which occurs when sin omega t is equal to plus minus 1. So, either it can be plus value or it can be minus value. Minus value is minimum, but magnitude wise the value will be maximum. If we denote NBA omega as E naught. So, now just for a little ease in writing, a new value, a new denotation is being found out here, that epsilon naught is equal to NBA omega. So, just iterating this stuff as epsilon naught, we get epsilon is equal to epsilon naught sin omega t. Moving on. Now, since the value of sine function varies between plus 1 and minus 1, the sign or polarity of the EMF changes with time. Very evident concept, that because sine value keeps on changing, let us say this is 0, this is pi, this is 2 pi, this is 3 pi, this is 4 pi. So, in the green portion the value is positive. Whose value is positive? This sin omega t value is positive, and hence the value of EMF is positive. And the blue is negative, and therefore, this line is valid, that since the value of sine function varies between plus 1 and minus 1, the sign plus 1 and minus 1 is here. So, this is plus 1 here, this is minus 1 here. So, since the value of the sine function varies between +1 and -1, the sign or polarity when I was talking to you about Lenz's law, then the concept of polarity was coming again and again. So, I had told you that in mathematical terms polarity is nothing but a sign of plus and minus. So, same thing is written here again, that the sign or polarity of the EMF. What is EMF? EMF is the flux, sorry, EMF is voltage or epsilon value. So, polarity of the EMF changes with time, that is with time the value of it can be plus or it can be minus. Next point, note from the figure. So, now please note from please look over this figure here and please look over the AC generator figure also. So, note from the figure that the EMF has its extreme value when theta is 90. So, this is the theta is 90 value, theta is 90, then theta 270, as the change of flux is greatest at this point. So, at theta is equal to 90, this is the point we are talking about, at theta is equal to 270, this is the point we are talking about. I wrote the same thing here only. So, this value is pi here, this value is 2 pi here. Moving on. So, for value of 90 degree, theta 90 degree and theta 270, we are getting the values which is maximum. Maximum as in this point the sin omega t will be 1 or minus 1, magnitude will be maximum. Note from the figure that the EMF has its maximum extremum value, extreme as in maximum or minimum, extremum value when theta is 90 degree or theta is 270 degree, as the change of flux is greatest at these points. The direction of the current, please make sure, please look over this line very carefully. The direction of the current changes periodically, means with period the current direction is changed, it is sometimes positive, it is sometimes negative. The direction of the current changes periodically and therefore the current is called alternating current. So, here is the derivation of the name, that why is it is called as alternating as in alternate, it changes its polarity, it changes its direction, it is sometimes positive, it is sometimes negative, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. Therefore, it is called as alternating current. That is why we involve two types of current. So, you can directly involve the terms direct current also. Why is something called as direct current? Someone will say the polarity is same. Yes, the polarity is same, it does not change. If it is positive, it is positive, if it is negative, it is negative. That is the simple differentiation between alternating current and direct current. So, let us move on. So, again just a further discussion from this concept here. So, finally, we got that epsilon is equal to epsilon naught sin omega t. After this, since we know that omega is equal to 2 pi f, f is the frequency with which it is moving, f is the frequency, it can move like this, it can be slow also movement. So, the complete movement is nothing but omega is equal to 2 pi f. Sometimes in some books you can write it as 2 pi v also, or not v, it can be nu, it is called nu, n u, nu. So, since omega is equal to 2 pi v or let us say f, then it can be written as epsilon is equal to epsilon naught sin 2 pi v t, just a simple putting of terms, just mathematical putting and things from the previous equation is being done here, where nu is the frequency of revolution of the generator's coil. So, this was the final concept. So, this was the final concept involved when we are calculating the value of EMF induced. So, every simple principle, only if you go on to all the slides, previous slides, only these two formulas were being used, which were the principal equations involved in calculating the value of EMF produced in an AC generator. So, this was the basic principle of AC generators. Let me iterate to you this figure also, so that everything is being done. So, please look over here. So, the downward graph shows you the induced EMF value, So, induced EMF is nothing but, let me write here induced EMF. It is N B A omega sine omega t. So, what does it imply? That this maximum value here, this maximum value here is nothing but n b a omega. So, this is the maximum value here. Then what else? So, y axis is induced EMF, x axis is time for you. So, it can be written here also. See, so for one period to get completed, that means 360 degree complete movement should happen. So, complete, let us say we started at t is equal to 0. So, complete movement, a complete movement has to be completed, and hence that will be t that will be t is equal to capital T. So, complete movement will be completed when this time is completed. Therefore, this is capital T, half of capital T will be t by 2, half of capital T by 2 will be t by 4, and average or mid of t by 2 and t will be 3t by 4. You can even calculate also. Let us say I need to calculate the average of t by 2 plus t by 2. This is the mid value, and this mid value will be equal to 3t by 2 divided by 2, which is equal to 3t by 4. Which will be equal to 3t by 4. So, this concept is also being done to you. Then you can directly understand from this sin omega term that this will be a VV culture value which will be positive till t by 2, and then it will go down from t by 2 to t. Look over this: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5. So, stage 1 is the plane of armature is perpendicular to the magnetic field, as in this is the value of magnetic fields involved, and this is perpendicular. So, because it is perpendicular, the value of the value of EMF induced will be 0. In this, when the armature rotates through 90 degree, the plane of the armature is parallel to the magnetic field. So, because it is perpendicular, therefore, the magnetic fields are going like this, and the area vector is like this. Because the area vector is like this, magnetic field is like this, you can see a 90 degree being formed here. Because 90 degree is formed here, theta is 90, hence sin 90 is 1, and hence you are getting the maximum value here. In this place, the value of area vector is also like this, b is also like this, theta is 0, therefore sin is 0. Stage 3, armature after a rotation of 180 degree. So, this time what happen is sin in 180 will come, sin in 180 is again 0. Next, stage 4, armature after a rotation 270. What is 270? Sin 270. Sin 270 is nothing but minus 1. Hence, you get a maximum value, you get an extremum value, but this time the value is negative. Magnitude will be maximum, but the value is negative. Then stage 5. Stage 5 is nothing but armature after rotating through 360 degree. So, this time sin 360 degree, which is equal to 0. So, simple mathematical sign values is being used, and you can see that the coil is being rotated. It was like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, keeps on moving. So, this was direction of magnetic field, this is direction of magnetic field. I already told you the direction is like this, and the rotation will change the area vector direction. So, this is the basic concepts of AC generators. In this lecture, what we talked about was, we started with this value, the magnetic flux value, this is B dot A, which is B A cos omega t. Then I concluded to you what is the value of epsilon, that is EMF produced, that is NBA omega sin omega t. I explained to you the complete concept, why it is sometimes positive, why it is sometimes negative, because it is the VV culture of sine function which moves with time. Then I explained to you what are the complete things involved, what are the stages here, why what is the figure here, what is the graph here, what is the time movement here, why it is t by 4, t by 2, 3t by 4, and so on. So, this lecture I will conclude here only. In the next lecture I will tell to you what are the applications of AC generators, followed by some problems, and that will be the end of electromagnetic induction. Right now we have done lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4 and lesson 5. Lesson 6 is also done, inductance is also done. We are now moving on in AC generators, half of AC generators is done, a little bit is left which we will conclude in the next lecture. So, for now, thank you.